How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, April 19th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, of course, I'm going to review all of the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday's Sunday, April 18th. And of course, I'm going to preview everything that's going on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. Of course, starting with yesterday's basketball games, looking at the primetime matchups, starting in New York in Madison Square Garden for the first game that was on ESPN. The New York Knicks hosted the New Orleans Pelicans as Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett, former Duke players, played against one another. And in this matchup, the New York Knicks would beat the Pelicans 122-112 after outscoring the Pelicans 19-9 in overtime. For the Pelicans in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting power forward out of Duke, Zion Williamson, who finished with 34 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals in 42 minutes, as he shot 13 for 23 from the field and 8 for 11 from the foul line on the night. And also, within their starting lineup, their starting shooting guard, Eric Bledsoe, would finish with 22 points in 38 minutes as he shot 8 for 20 from the field, and he shot 3 for 3 from the foul line. Also, their elite starting shooting guard, Brandon Ingram out of Duke, would finish with 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists in 39 minutes as Ingram shot 6 for 18 from the field and 7 for 8 from the foul line. For the New York Knicks, their leading scorer would be their all-star power forward, Julius Randle, who finished with 33 points, 5 rebounds, 10 assists, and 5 steals in 47 minutes as Randle shot 11 for 28 from the field, 2 for 8 from 3, and 9 for 10 from the foul line. Also off the bench, their point guard, former NBA MVP Derrick Rose, would finish with 23 points and 5 assists in 35 minutes as he shot 9 for 17 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the New York Knicks are now 31-27. That is the 6th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've now won their last 6 games and 7 of their last 10. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they sit half a game behind the 4th place Atlanta Hawks and the 5th place Boston Celtics, and they sit a game and a half ahead of the 7th place reigning Eastern Conference champs Miami Heat. Overall, they sit 9 full games behind the Philadelphia 76ers out east. And with this loss, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 25-32. That is the 5th worst record in the Western Conference, as they have now lost their last 3 games and 6 of their last 10. They currently sit 5 games behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies outside of the Western Conference playoff picture, and they sit 17 whole games behind the Utah Jazz for the conference. I'm looking at the next big game of the night, jumping out to Miami. The Miami Heat hosted the Brooklyn Nets on ESPN, and in this matchup, this game will come all the way down to the very end, as it would be Bam Adebayo hitting the buzzer beater to give the Miami Heat their 29th win of the season, winning it 109-107. For the Brooklyn Nets in this matchup, their leading scorer will come off the bench as their shooting guard Landry Shamet would finish with 30 points in 38 minutes, shooting 10 for 15 from the field, 7 for 12 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. Their leading scorer out of their starters would be their elite starting point guard, Kyrie Irving, who finished with 20 points, 20 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in 38 minutes, as the Duke product shot 6 for 19 from the field, 2 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the line. Their elite starting, or their goated starting power forward, Kevin Durant, would finish with 8 points and a rebound in 4 minutes as he shot a perfect 3 for 3 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. He would eventually leave the game with a thigh injury, so it'll be a second before he comes back. And also in the starting lineup for the Nets, their elite starting power forward, Blake Griffin, would finish with 7 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists in 26 minutes as he shot 2 for 7 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. For the Miami Heat in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting center out of Kentucky and the game winner, Bam Adebayo, who finished with 21 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, and 7 turnovers, as well as 2 steals in 38 minutes as he shot 9 for 16 from the field and 3 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Miami Heat are now 29-28. That is the 7th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now won 6 of their last 10 games. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they sit a game and a half behind the 6th place New York Knicks, and they sit half a game ahead of the 8th place Charlotte Hornets at the moment. They currently trail the Philadelphia 76ers by 10.5 games in the conference with this win as well. With this loss, the Brooklyn Nets are now 38-19. That is the 2nd best record in the Eastern Conference. With this loss, they've still won 6 of their last 10 games, In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they sit a game and a half behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers, and they now sit 2.5 games ahead of the third place Milwaukee Bucks. Jumping out to Dallas for the third primetime game of the night. The Dallas Mavericks went on to host the Sacramento Kings, and in this matchup, the Kings would beat the Mavericks 121-107. The difference would be the second quarter, where they outscored the Dallas Mavericks 45-30 by 15 points. And for the Dallas Mavericks in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard, Luka Doncic, who finished with 37 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists, as well as 3 blocks in 36 minutes, as he shot 14 for 27 from the field, 4 for 13 from 3, and 5 for 10 from the foul line. Also in the starting lineup, their starting power forward, Dorian Finney-Smith, would finish with 22 points of his own in 35 minutes, as he shot 8 for 11 from the field and 6 for 8 from 3. And then off the bench, their point guard out of Villanova, Jalen Brunson, would finish with 20 points in 31 minutes, as he shot 8 for 10 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and he would end up shooting 2 for 4 from the foul line on the night. Looking out to how the Sacramento Kings performed in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting point guard out of Kentucky, De'Aaron Fox, who finished with 30 points and 12 rebounds, as well as 2 steals in 37 minutes, as he shot 12 for 21 from the field and 6 for 7 from the line. Also in the starting lineup, their starting small forward, Harrison Barnes out of UNC, would finish with 24 points and 5 rebounds in 36 minutes, as he shot 9 for 14 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, and 1 for 1 from the foul line. And then off the bench for the Sacramento Kings, their forward Terrence Davis would finish, or their guard Terrence Davis would finish with 23 points in 30 minutes, shooting 9 for 12 from the field and a perfect 5 for 5 from the line. With this win, the Sacramento Kings are now 23-34. That is the 4th worst record in the Western Conference. With this win, they've only won 1 of their last 10 games. They currently sit 7 games behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies outside of the Western Conference playoff picture, and they now trail the Utah Jazz by 19 games in the conference. With this loss, the Dallas Mavericks are now 30-26. That is the 7th best record in the Western Conference. They've now lost their last 2 games, and they've still won 5 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they sit 2 games behind the 6th place Portland Trailblazers and half a game ahead of the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies, as they currently trail the Utah Jazz by 11.5 games in the playoff picture. Jumping out to the last primetime game of the night, the Los Angeles Clippers hosted the Minnesota Timberwolves and were able to pull off a 124-105 win. In the second quarter, the Clippers would outscore the Timberwolves by 16, and they outscored them by 16 in the third as well. But the Timberwolves would outscore the Clippers by 16 in the fourth, but of course it wouldn't be enough to come back and win. For the Timberwolves in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their number 1 overall pick from the 2020 NBA draft out of Georgia, Anthony Edwards, who finished with 23 points and 6 rebounds in 29 minutes, shooting 6 for 16 from the field, 5 for 11 from 3, and 6 for 7 from the foul line. Also in the starting lineup, their elite starting center, Karl Anthony Towns, would finish with 16 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists in 25 minutes, as he shot 5 for 15 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. Off the bench for Minnesota, their elite point guard, D'Angelo Russell, would finish with 11 points and 4 assists, as well as 6 turnovers in 22 minutes, as he shot 5 for 13 from the field and 1 for 5 from 3. For the Los Angeles Clippers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting shooting guard, Paul George, who finished with 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists, as well as 2 steals in 27 minutes. He would shoot 9 for 17 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. Also in the starting lineup for the Clippers, their goated small forward, Kawhi Leonard, would finish with 15 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists in 23 minutes, as he shot 6 for 11 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and he made his only free throw of the night, so he was 1 for 1. With this win, the Los Angeles Clippers are 40-19. They are the 4th team in the NBA to cross the 40-win threshold. They have won 8 of their last 10 games. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they now sit a game and a half behind the 2nd place Phoenix Suns, and they now sit 2.5 games ahead of the 4th place Denver Nuggets, as they trail the Jazz by 3 games in the conference. With this loss, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 15-43, as they have just reclaimed the worst record in the NBA. With this loss, they've now lost 7 of their last 10 games. They sit 15.5 games behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies outside of the Western Conference playoff picture, and they sit 27.5 games behind the Utah Jazz in the conference, just to get a sense of where the Timberwolves are. Outside of the primetime matchups, jumping to Atlanta, the Atlanta Hawks hosted the Indiana Pacers and were able to pull up a 129-117 win after they outscored Indiana by 12 in the first quarter and by 8 in the fourth. For the Pacers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting point guard Malcolm Brogdon, who finished with 29 points and 8 assists in 31 minutes, shooting 11 for 18 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. Also in the starting lineup for the Pacers, their two-time All-Star Domantas Sabonis would finish with 18 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists and 2 steals in 38 minutes, as he shot 8 for 14 from the field and 2 for 4 from 3. For the Atlanta Hawks in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard out of Oklahoma, Trae Young, who finished with 34 points, 5 rebounds, 11 assists, and 2 steals in 35 minutes, as he shot 9 for 21 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, and 13 for 14 from the foul line. Their starting center, Clint Capella, would finish with 25 points, 24 rebounds, 2 steals, and 3 blocks in 36 minutes, as he shot 10 for 17 from the field and 5 for 9 from the foul line. Their starting shooting guard, Bogdan Bogdanovic, would finish with 23 points and 2 steals in 37 minutes as he shot 9 for 18 from the field and 5 for 11 from 3. And their other starting guard, Kevin Huerter, would finish with 23 points and 9 rebounds and 2 steals in 40 minutes as Huerter shot 8 for 12 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Atlanta Hawks are now 31-26. They are tied right now with the Boston Celtics for the 4th best record in the Eastern Conference. With this win, they've now won 8 of their last 10 games. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they now sit 4.5 games behind the 3rd place Milwaukee Bucks. And alongside the Celtics, they now sit half a game ahead of the 6th place New York Knicks at the moment, as they trail the Philadelphia 76ers by 8.5 games in the conference. With this loss, the Indiana Pacers are now 26-30. That is the 9th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've now lost their last 2 games, even though they've won 5 of their last 10. They currently sit 2 games behind the 8th place Charlotte Hornets outside of the Eastern Conference playoff picture, and they now trail the Philadelphia 76ers by 13 total games in the conference. Jumping out to the next non-primetime game of the night in Charlotte, the Charlotte Hornets beat the Portland Trailblazers 109-101. The big difference would be in the first quarter, where the Hornets outscored the Portland Trailblazers by 20 and kept that momentum virtually through the end of the game. For the Trailblazers, their leading scorer would be their starting shooting guard, it would be their power forward off the bench, their future Hall of Fame power forward, Carmelo Anthony out of Syracuse, who finished with 24 points in 28 minutes, shooting 8 for 19 from the field, 6 for 12 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Out of their starters, their leading scorer would be their starting shooting guard, CJ McCollum out of Mercer, who finished with 22 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 40 minutes as he shot 8 for 22 from the field and 4 for 7 from the foul line. For the Charlotte Hornets in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting shooting guard, Terry Rozier, who finished with 34 points, 8 rebounds, 10 assists, and 2 steals in 39 minutes as he shot 13 for 24 from the field, 7 for 13 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the line. And then off the bench, their power forward, P.J. Washington, would finish with 23 points and 8 rebounds, as well as 4 blocks in 34 minutes, as he shot 8 for 17 from the field, 5 for 11 from 3, and 2 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Charlotte Hornets are now 28-28. That is the 8th best record in the Eastern Conference. With this win, they've only won 4 of their last 10. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they now sit half a game behind the 7th place defending Eastern Conference champs Miami Heat, and they currently sit 2 games ahead of the Indiana Pacers, who are on the outside looking in. Overall, they trail the Philadelphia 76ers by 11 games in the conference. With this loss, the Portland Trailblazers are now 32-24. That is the 6th best record in the Western Conference. With this loss, they've also lost 6 of their last 10. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they now sit 2.5 games behind the 5th place defending champs Los Angeles Lakers, and they now sit 2 games ahead of the 7th place Dallas Mavericks at the moment, as they sit 9.5 games behind the Utah Jazz in the Western Conference. Jumping out to Orlando, the Orlando Magic hosted the Houston Rockets, and in this matchup, the Rockets would beat the Magic 114-110 to no longer be the worst team in the NBA. The difference would be the third quarter, where they outscored the Magic 32-18 to pick up their 15th win of the season. For Orlando in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting shooting guard out of Florida State, Dwayne Bacon, who finished with 22 points and 3 steals in 33 minutes, as he shot 7 for 14 from the field and a perfect 7 for 7 from the line. For the Houston Rockets, their leading scorer would be their starting center, Christian Wood, who finished with 25 points, 10 rebounds, or 25 points and 10 rebounds in 40 minutes, as he shot 9 for 18 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and 3 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting power forward, Kelly Olynyk, would finish with 24 points and 7 rebounds, as well as 6 turnovers in 39 minutes, as he shot 9 for 14 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. And their starting shooting guard out of USC, Kevin Porter Jr., would finish with 22 points, 7 assists, and 6 fouls in 32 minutes, as he shot 8 for 15 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line before he fouled out of the night. With this win, the Houston Rockets are now 15-42. That is the second worst record in the Western Conference, as they've only won 2 of their last 10 games. They currently sit 15 games behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies outside of the Western Conference playoff picture, and they now sit 27 whole games behind the first place Utah Jazz in the conference. With this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 18-39, as they currently hold the second worst record in the East. They've now lost their last 2 games. They've lost 8 of their last 10. They currently sit 10.5 games behind the 8th place Charlotte Hornets outside of the Eastern Conference playoff picture, as they sit 21.5 games behind the Philadelphia 76ers out east. Jumping out to Tampa Bay, the Toronto Raptors hosted the Oklahoma City Thunder and were able to pull off a 112-106 win after outscoring Oklahoma City by 13 points in the second half to pull off their 24th win of the season. For Oklahoma, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward out of Arizona State, Luguentz Dort, who finished with 29 points in 31 minutes, shooting 9 for 15 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, and 6 for 8 from the foul line on the night. For the Toronto Raptors, their leading scorer would be their starting power forward, Chris Boucher, who finished with 31 points and 12 rebounds in 35 minutes, as he shot 10 for 16 from the field, 6 for 9 from 3, and 5 for 7 from the foul line. Also in the starting lineup for the Raptors, their starting shooting guard, Gary Trent Jr., would finish with 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 steals in 33 minutes, as he shot 9 for 25 from the field and 5 for 10 from 3. With this win, the Toronto Raptors are now 24-34. That is the 10th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now won their last 3 games and 6 of their last 10. They currently sit 5 games behind the 8th place Charlotte Hornets outside of the playoff picture, and they currently sit 16 games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers in the Eastern Conference at the moment. With this loss, the Oklahoma City Thunder are now 20-37, as they are that is the third worst record in the Western Conference. They have now lost their last 10 games, which is of course the worst streak in the NBA as of right now. They currently sit 10 games behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies outside of the playoff picture, and they now sit 22 games behind the Utah Jazz in the Western Conference at the moment. Jumping out, those were all of the games from yesterday, from Sunday's matchups leading into today, and of course looking forward to what's going on today, starting of course with the primetime matchups at 7:30. The Philadelphia 76ers, the current holder of the Eastern Conference's best record, are going to host the Warriors, the team that currently holds the 9th best record in the West. This game will be on ESPN at 7:30. Joel Embiid versus Stephen Curry, the two players in the NBA that are averaging at least 30 points per game this season. And then following that, at 10 o'clock, the defending champions Los Angeles Lakers, without LeBron James and Anthony Davis, are going to host the Utah Jazz that currently hold the best record in the Western Conference. At 10 o'clock. This will also be on ESPN. Outside of the primetime games at 7 o'clock, the Detroit Pistons will host the Cleveland Cavaliers. At 7:30, the Boston Celtics will host the Chicago Bulls. At 8 o'clock, the Indiana Pacers will host the San Antonio Spurs. The Miami Heat will host the Houston Rockets. The Washington Wizards will host the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the Milwaukee Bucks will host the Phoenix Suns. And last but not least, at 9 o'clock tonight, the Denver Nuggets will host the Memphis Grizzlies, as Jokic and Valanciunas look to be 2 of the top centers in form as of right now. That's everything going on with the NBA. Staying within the arena, but of course shifting the context to the ice, jumping out to see what's going on in the NHL. And of course, to be noted, every team has to play within their own division. Starting off in the East Division, the Boston Bruins hosted the Washington Capitals and were able to pull off a 6-3 win as their center, their trio of centers, Bergeron, Krejci, and Marchand all finished with 2 goals themselves. With their 25th win of the season, the Boston Bruins now hold the 4th best record in the East Division as they now trail the Washington Capitals by 6 points in the table with 3 less games played. So mathematically, they can pass them. Jumping out to New Jersey, the New Jersey Devils hosted the New York Rangers 5-3, and the Rangers were able to pick up their 23rd win of the season. With this win, the New York Rangers now have the 5th best record in the East Division as they now trail the Capitals by 10 points. Jumping out to Buffalo, the Sabres were able to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins and pull off a 4-2 win behind Reinhardt's 2 goals. And with this win, they still sit at the bottom of the East Division as they now trail the Capitals by 31 points when they have 31 points themselves on the table, doubling their output. And then jumping out to Philly, the Philadelphia Flyers hosted the New York Islanders, and the Islanders scored the only goal of the game in overtime. It was by Leddy, their defender. With their 28th win of the season, the New York Islanders now hold the 2nd best record in the East Division as they now sit 2 points behind the Capitals with 1 less game played at the moment. So mathematically, they can pass them up as well. Leaving the East Division, jumping out, seeing what's going on north of the border, the Vancouver Canucks were able to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs 3-2 in overtime to pick up their 17th win of the season. With this win, the Vancouver Canucks now hold the 2nd worst record in the North Division as they now trail the Toronto Maple Leafs by 24 total points in the table. And then jumping out west for the only game out west, the Anaheim Ducks hosted the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and the Golden Knights were able to pull off a 5-2 win to pick up their 31st win of the season. With this win, the Las Vegas Golden Knights are now tied with the Avalanche at the top of the table for 64 points, as the Golden Knights are now on a 6-game win streak. But the Avalanche have played 1 less game, so mathematically they can overtake the Golden Knights at any moment. Those were all of the games from yesterday, previewing everything that's going on today for Monday, April 19th. Starting with the prime times at 7:30, the Dallas Stars will host the Detroit Red Wings, 2 teams at the bottom of the Central. At 9 o'clock, the Calgary Flames will host the Ottawa Senators, another matchup between 2 teams at the bottom of the North Division. Outside of the prime times at 7 o'clock, the Tampa Bay Lightning will host the Carolina Hurricanes. And the Florida Panthers will host the Columbus Blue Jackets. At 8 o'clock, the Nashville Predators will host the Chicago Blackhawks. And then, or at 9 o'clock, the Edmonton Oilers will host the Montreal Canadiens, and the Arizona Coyotes will host the Minnesota Wild. And last but not least, at 10 o'clock, the Las Vegas Golden Knights will host the San Jose Sharks. So right now, that is what the NHL is looking like following yesterday's games. Jumping out to see what's going on in the MLB, as of course the MLB closing out its 3rd weekend of the season. Starting out in Washington, D.C., the Nationals hosted the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Diamondbacks were able to beat the Nationals 5-2, scoring their last 3 runs in the last 3 innings of the game. For the Nationals in this matchup, the start and the loss would end up going to Paolo Espino. Paolo Espino would allow 2 earned runs in 4.1 innings pitch as he struck out 3 batters on the day. With this loss, he's now 0-1 as a starting pitcher. For the Nats, their shortstop Trey Turner would go 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs. He had 2 solo home runs in the game. He now has 4 on the season. Their elite right fielder Juan Soto would go 0 for 4 as he walked twice, and their third baseman Starlin Castro would end up going 2 for 4 for himself. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, the win would go to their starting pitcher, Madison Bumgarner, who allowed 1 earned run and 2 hits in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 5 on the day. With this win, Madison Bumgarner is now 1-2 as a starting pitcher. Their second baseman, Josh Rojas, would end up going 2 for 4 with an RBI and 3 runs as he also had a walk on the day. With this win, Rojas hit his first home run of the season in the first inning. Their left fielder, David Peralta, will go 2 for 4 with a run for himself. And then their center fielder, Nick Heath, will go 3 for 4 on the day. With this win, the Arizona Diamondbacks are now 6-10. Looking out in the NL West, that is the fourth best record as they currently trail the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers by 7 whole games in the division. With this loss, the Washington Nationals are now 5-8. That is the worst record in the NL East. They currently trail the New York Mets by 3 whole games in the division. Jumping out to Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Phillies hosted the St. Louis Cardinals and were able to pull off a 2-0 win, holding the Cardinals to 2 hits all game. They would get a run in the first inning from a Bryce Harper home run, and then an Alec Bohm sacrifice fly in the fifth would bring home the other run of the game. For the St. Louis Cardinals in this matchup, the start and the loss would end up going to John Gant. John Gant would allow 2 earned runs in 5 hits allowed in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 5 batters on the day. With this loss, John Gant is now 0-2 as a starter. For the Cardinals, their elite first baseman Paul Goldschmidt will go 0-4 as he struck out once, and their elite third baseman Nolan Arenado will go 0-4 as well. For the Philadelphia Phillies in this matchup, the win would go to their starting pitcher Aaron Nola, who would allow 2 hits and no earned runs in all 9 innings pitched. With this complete game shutout, he was also able to strike out 10 batters. With this win, Aaron Nola is now 1-1 on the season for the Phillies. In their lineup, their elite right fielder Bryce Harper would go 3-for-3 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 3rd home run of the season, and their second baseman Gene Segura will go 2-for-3 on the day. With this win, the Philadelphia Phillies are now 8-7. That is the second best record in the NL East as they now trail the New York Mets by a game in the division. With this loss, the St. Louis Cardinals are now 7-8. That is the third best record in the NL Central as they now trail the Reds by 2 games in the division. Jumping out to Yankee Stadium, the Yankees hosted the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Rays were able to beat the Yankees 4-2 as they were able to break away in the 7th and 9th innings with runs of their own. For the New York Yankees, the start and the loss would end up going to their elite starting pitcher Garrett Cole, who allowed 2 earned runs in 6.1 innings pitched. 3 runs were scored on him. One was not his fault as he struck out 10 batters in those 6.1 innings. With this loss, Garrett Cole is now 2-1 as a starting pitcher this season. Their first baseman DJ LeMahieu would go 1-for-4 with an RBI on the day. Their elite right fielder Aaron Judge would go 0-for-4 as he struck out 3 times. Their elite designated hitter, Giancarlo Stanton, would go 1-for-3 with an RBI and a run as he also walked. He hit his 3rd home run of the season in the 2nd inning, one of the 2 RBIs on the day for New York. And then for Tampa Bay, the start for the Rays would end up going to Andrew Kittredge, but then Yarbrough would end up picking up the win in relief as Ryan Yarbrough would allow 1 earned run in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 4 on the day. With this win, Ryan Yarbrough is now 1-2 as a starting pitcher for the Rays. And then for the Rays, their shortstop Joey Wendell was the only player to log more than 1 hit for the day. He would finish 2-for-3 with an RBI and 2 runs on the day. With this win, the Tampa Bay Rays are now 8-8. That is the second best record in the American League East as they now trail the Boston Red Sox by 2 games in the division. With this loss, the New York Yankees are now 5-10. That is the worst record in the AL East as they now trail the Boston Red Sox by 4.5 games in the division. Jumping out to Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Reds hosted the Cleveland Indians. In this matchup, the Indians were able to beat the Reds 6-3 as Shane Bieber put on another virtuoso performance. For the Cincinnati Reds in this matchup, the start and the loss would end up going to Wade Miley. Wade Miley would allow 4 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 5 batters on the day. With this loss, Wade Miley is now 2-1 as a starting pitcher. Their first baseman, Joey Votto, would go 3-for-4 with 2 RBIs on the day for himself. He was the only player on the Reds to log more than 1 hit for the day. For the Cleveland Indians, the win went to their elite starting pitcher, reigning American League Cy Young and Triple Crown winner Shane Bieber, who allowed 3 earned runs in 8 innings pitched as he struck out 13 batters on the day in those 8 innings pitched. With this win, Shane Bieber is now 2-1 as a starting pitcher. The save will go to Emmanuel Clace. That's his 4th save of the season, striking out all 3 batters in the last inning of the game. In their lineup, their elite third baseman Jose Ramirez would go 1-for-4 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 4th home run of the season. And then their first baseman Yu Chang would go 2-for-3 with a run on the day. And with this win, the Cleveland Indians are now 8-7. That is the second best record in the AL Central as they sit a game and a half behind the Kansas City Royals. With this loss, the Cincinnati Reds are now 9-6. They still hold the best record in the NL Central as they sit a game ahead of the second place Milwaukee Brewers. Jumping out to Boston, the Boston Red Sox and the White Sox had a doubleheader. In the first matchup, the White Sox were able to beat the Red Sox 3-2 as Dallas Keuchel picked up his first win of the season. For the Red Sox, the start and the loss would go to Tanner Houck, who would allow 3 earned runs in the 4.1 innings that he pitched, striking out 2 on the day. With his loss, Tanner Houck is now 0-2 as a starting pitcher for the Red Sox. The only player that was able to log more than one hit for Boston was their first baseman Bobby Dalbec, who finished 2 for 3 on the day, and their elite designated hitter JD Martinez would go 1 for 3 with a run on the day. For the Chicago White Sox in the first matchup, the start and the win would go to Dallas Keuchel, who allowed their elite starting pitcher, who allowed 2 earned runs in 5 innings pitched, and he struck out one batter on the day. With this win, Dallas Keuchel is now 1-0 as a starting pitcher, and the save would go to their elite closer, Liam Hendriks. He picked up his second save of the season as he allowed only 1 hit and no earned runs in the last inning of the game. In the lineup for the Sox, their elite shortstop Tim Anderson would go 3 for 4 with an RBI and a run in the first game as he hit his second home run of the season. Their elite first baseman, reigning American League MVP Jose Abreu would go 1 for 3 with a run for himself. So with this win, the White Sox picked up their 7th win of the season, and in the second game of this doubleheader, the White Sox would beat the Red Sox 5-1 to pick up their 8th win of the season as well. For the Red Sox in the second game, the start would go to Martin Perez, who would allow 4 earned runs in the 3.2 innings that he pitched as he struck out 4 batters. With this loss, Perez is now 0-1 as a starting pitcher for the Red Sox. In this matchup, no one on the Red Sox was able to log more than 1 hit as their elite designated hitter, JD Martinez, went 1 for 3 with the only RBI of the day for the Red Sox. For the White Sox in this matchup, the start would end up going to Michael Kopech, who would allow only 1 earned run in 3 innings pitched as he struck out 4. The win would go to their relief pitcher, Matt Foster, who would allow only 1 hit and no earned runs in 1.2 innings pitched as he struck out 2 batters. With this win, Foster is now 1-1 as a relief pitcher for the Chicago White Sox on the day. Their second baseman, Nick Madrigal, will go 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and a run. Their center fielder, Luis Robert, will go 2 for 4 on the day. And then their right fielder, Laurie Garcia, will go 2 for 3 with 2 runs on the day. With their second win, or with both wins in this doubleheader, the Chicago White Sox are now 8-8. That is the 3rd best record in the American League Central as they now trail the Kansas City Royals by 2 games as they are now at 500. And with both of these losses, the Boston Red Sox are now 10-6. They still hold the best record in the AL East as they now sit 2 games ahead of the second place Tampa Bay Rays at the moment. Jumping out to Miami, the Miami Marlins hosted the San Francisco Giants, and the only run of the game would come in the 3rd inning off of an Alex Dickerson RBI single to give the Giants the 1-0 win that they needed. For the Miami Marlins, the start and the loss would go to Pablo Lopez, who allowed no earned runs, but a run was scored on his watch. He allowed 6 hits in 6 innings pitched. As he was able to strike out 9 on the day. With this loss, Pablo Lopez is now 0-2 as a starting pitcher for Miami. And no one on the Marlins was able to log more than 1 hit on the day as the Giants held them to 3 hits all day. And this pitching performance would start with Alex Wood, who would pick up the win. Alex Wood would allow no earned runs and 3 hits in 5 innings pitches. He struck out 4, and then their bullpen would allow no hits in the final 4 innings as their pitching virtually dominated this game, combining for 9 strikeouts on the night. In their batting lineup, no one on the Giants was able to log more than 1 hit either, but Alex Dickerson would go 1 for 3 with an RBI for the day because he was the hero for the Giants. With this win, the Alex Wood is now 1-0 as a starting pitcher, and the San Francisco Giants are now 9-6. That is the 3rd best record in the National League West as they now sit 3.5 games behind the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers. And with this loss, the Miami Marlins are now 7-8. That is the 3rd best record in the NL East as they now trail the New York Mets by 2 games in the division. Jumping out to Kansas City, the Kansas City Royals hosted the Toronto Blue Jays and were able to pull off a 2-0 win at home. The only scoring play would be a 2-run home run from Salvador Perez in the bottom of the 7th to give them their 9th win of the season. For the Toronto Blue Jays, the start would end up going to Robbie Ray, who allowed no earned runs and 4 hits in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 3 batters and walked 6. The loss would end up going to their relief pitcher, TJ Zook. TJ Zook would allow 2 earned runs in the .2 innings that he pitched. With this loss, he's now 0-2 as a relief pitcher. The Blue Jays were only held to 2 hits all day. Their elite designated hitter, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., would go 0-3 as he walked once and also struck out once. For the Kansas City Royals, the start would go to Brady Singer, who allowed only 2 hits in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 6 batters on the day. The win would go to their relief pitcher, Kyle Zimmer, who allowed no hits, no earned runs in the 1 inning that he pitched. With this win, Zimmer is now 1-0 on the season as Greg Holland picked up his 2nd save of the season. In the batting lineup, their elite second baseman, Whit Merrifield, will go 0-3 as he walked twice. Their first baseman, Carlos Santana, would go 2-4 as he walked once and finished with a run. Their elite catcher, Salvador Perez, would go 1-5 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his 5th home run of the season. And then their left fielder, Kyle Isbell, would go 2-3 with a walk on the day. With this win, the Kansas City Royals are now 9-5. That is the best record in the American League Central, as they now sit a game and a half ahead of the Cleveland Indians and 4 games ahead of the last place Detroit Tigers at the moment. With this loss, the Toronto Blue Jays are now 7-9. That is the worst record, or that is the 3rd best record in the AL East, tied with the Baltimore Orioles, as they now sit 3 games behind the Boston Red Sox in the AL East. Jumping out to Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Brewers hosted the Pittsburgh Pirates, and this game would eventually go into overtime, where a Colin Moran RBI double would put the Pirates up enough to win the game. For the Brewers in this matchup, their starting pitcher would end up being Freddie Peralta. In this matchup, Freddie Peralta would allow 3 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 7 on the day. Their elite relief pitcher, Devin Williams, would only allow 1 hit in the 1 inning that he pitched, and the eventual loss would be tagged to JP Fireison. Sorry if I butchered the name, as he would allow a run in the last inning that he played. He's now 0-1 as a relief pitcher. Their center fielder, Jackie Bradley Jr., would go 2-5 with a run. Their first baseman, Daniel Vogelbach, would go 2-5 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his first 2 home runs of the season. Their right fielder, Avi Garcia, will go 2-5 with an RBI and 2 runs as he now has 3 home runs on the season. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, the start will go to Chad Kuhl, who would allow 3 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 6 batters. The win would end up going to their relief pitcher, Richard Rodriguez, who struck out 2 batters in the 2 innings that he pitched, allowing no hits or runs. With this win, Rich Rodriguez is 1-0 on the season as a relief pitcher. Their left fielder, Brian Reynolds, would go 2-3 with 2 RBIs and 3 runs as he hit his 2nd home run of the season. Their first baseman, Colin Moran, would go 2-5 with 4 RBIs and a run as Moran hit his 4th home run of the season. And then for the Pirates, their shortstop, Eric Gonzalez, would end up going 2-5 on the day. With this win, the Pittsburgh Pirates are now 7-9. That is currently the 4th best record in the NL Central, as they now trail the Cincinnati Reds by 2.5 games. With this loss, the Milwaukee Brewers are now 8-7. That is the 2nd best record in the NL Central, as they now trail the Reds by a game in the division. Jumping out to Dallas, the Texas Rangers hosted the Baltimore Orioles and were able to pull off a 1-0 win. The only run would come in the 10th inning off of a walk-off RBI single from Nate Lowe, as the Rangers picked up their 7th win of the season. Both teams were held to 5 hits all game. For Baltimore, the start would go to John Means. He would not pick up a decision all game. He would allow no earned runs and only 3 hits in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 9 batters on the day. The loss would come in relief to Travis Lakin Sr., who allowed a run in the last .2 innings that he would pitch. The only player for the Baltimore Orioles that logged more than 1 hit on the day would be their infielder, Ramon Urias. Their second baseman will go 2-3 on the day. For Texas, the start would end up going to Kyle Gibson, who allowed no earned runs and 4 hits in 8 innings pitched as he struck out 6 on the day. The win would come to their relief pitcher, John King, who picked up his first win of the season. He would allow no earned runs and 1 hit in the last inning that he pitched. He's now 1-0 as a relief pitcher for the Texas Rangers. Their second baseman, Nick Solak, will go 2-3 on the day. And with this win, the Texas Rangers are now 7-9 on the season. In the American League West, that is the worst record, as they now trail the Seattle Mariners by 3 games. And with this loss, the Baltimore Orioles are also 7-9. They are tied with the Toronto Blue Jays for the third best record in the AL East, as they both sit 3 games behind the Boston Red Sox at the moment. Jumping out to Colorado, out to Denver, the Colorado Rockies hosted the New York Mets, and the Mets were able to pull off a 2-1 win in an amazingly pitched game. For the Colorado Rockies, the start and the loss would end up going to Antonio Senzatella, who would allow 1 earned run and 2 runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 4 batters on the day. With this loss, Senzatella is now 1-3 as a starting pitcher. Their shortstop, Trevor Story, would go 2 for 4 with a run on the day, and their elite right fielder, Charlie Blackmon, would go 1 for 3 with an RBI. For the New York Mets, the win would go to their starting pitcher, the win would go to Marcus Stroman, who would allow 1 earned run and 3 hits in 8 innings pitched as he struck out 5 on the day. With this win, Marcus Stroman is now 3-0 as a starting pitcher for the Mets, and Edwin Diaz would pick up his second save for the Giants. In their batting lineup, their elite shortstop, Francisco Lindor, would go 0 for 4 as he struck out once. Their elite second fielder, Pete Alonso, would go 2 for 4 with a run. Their right fielder, and last but not least, their right fielder, Michael Conforto, would go 2 for 4 with a run himself. With this win, the New York Mets are now 7-4. That is the best record in the NL East, as they sit 1 game ahead of the second-place Philadelphia Phillies and 3 games ahead of the last-place Washington Nationals at the moment. With this loss, the Colorado Rockies are 4-12. That is the worst record in the NL West. They currently trail the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers by 9 games in the division. Jumping out to Oakland, the Oakland Athletics hosted the Detroit Tigers and were able to pull off a 3-2 win after scoring a run in the 8th and 9th inning each. Sean Murphy would tie it up with a home run, and it would be a Mitch Moreland reaching on a fielding error for Oakland to win in the bottom of the 9th off of a walk-off. For the Tigers in this matchup, the start would end up going to Matt Boyd. Matt Boyd would end up allowing 2 earned runs and 7.1 innings pitched as he struck out 5 batters on the day. The loss would go to Gregory Soto in relief as he allowed 1 run and 0.2 innings pitched, striking out 2 batters. With this loss, Soto is 1-1 as a relief pitcher for Detroit. The only player to log more than 1 hit for Detroit on the day would end up being Harold Castro, their first baseman, who had 3 for 4 with the only 2 RBIs for Detroit on the day. And then for Oakland, the start would end up going to Chris Bassett. Chris Bassett would end up allowing 2 earned runs and 6 innings pitched as he struck out 8 batters on the day. And the win in relief will go to the Oakland Athletics relief pitcher Lou Trevino. Trevino would allow only 1 hit in no earned runs and 1 innings pitched as he struck out a batter. With this win, Trevino is 1-0 in relief. No one on the Oakland A's would log more than 1 hit, and their elite third baseman, Matt Chapman, would go 0 for 4 as he struck out 3 times on the day. With this win, the Oakland Athletics are still 9-7, looking out into the American League West. That is the 3rd best record as they now trail the Seattle Mariners by a game. And with this loss, the Detroit Tigers are now 6-10. That is the worst record in the AL Central as they now trail the Royals by 4 whole games in the division. Jumping out to San Diego, the Padres hosted the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers and were able to give the Dodgers their 3rd loss of the season. They're the last team in the MLB to hit their 3rd loss. For the Dodgers in this matchup, the start will go to their elite starting pitcher, Trevor Bauer, who allowed 1 earned run in 6 innings pitched as he only allowed 3 hits as well. He struck out 7 batters, and the Dodgers would eventually blow the save. It would be Gatterall. The loss would end up going to Scott Alexander. Alexander would allow 1 run and 0.2 innings pitched. With this loss, Alexander is 0-1 in relief. In the lineup for the Dodgers, their elite right fielder Mookie Betts would go 0 for 3 as he walked once. Their elite shortstop Corey Seager would go 0 for 4 as he struck out twice. No one on the Dodgers was able to log more than 1 hit as Chris Taylor had the only 2 RBIs of the day for the Dodgers as he went 1 for 4. He hit his 3rd home run of the season. For the San Diego Padres, the start will go to their elite starting pitcher Blake Snell, who allowed 2 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 7. He wouldn't get the decision, but the win will go to their relief pitcher Keon Kela, who would allow 1 hit in 1 inning pitch as he is now 2-0 as a relief pitcher. And the 6th save of the season for the Padres will go to Mark Melancon, who allowed no hits, no earned runs in 1 inning pitched. In the lineup for the Padres, their elite shortstop Fernando Tatis Jr. will go 0 for 3 as he walked and struck out once and still finished with a run. Their elite third baseman Manny Machado will go 3 for 4 as he finished with a run for himself as well. Their first baseman, Eric Hosmer, would go 2 for 4 for himself as he finished with 2 RBIs and a run. And with this win, the San Diego Padres are now 10-7. That is the third best record in the NL West, as they currently trail the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers by 3.5 games in the division. And speaking of the defending champs, the Los Angeles Dodgers are now 13-3 with this loss. They are the only team with more than 10 wins in the MLB at the very moment. And looking at where they sit in the NL West, they sit 3.5 games ahead of the second place San Francisco Giants and the third place San Diego Padres at the moment, as they sit 9 full games ahead of the last place Colorado Rockies. Jumping out to Seattle, the Seattle Mariners hosted the Houston Astros and were able to pull off a 7-2 win to give Newsom his first win of the season. For the Astros, the loss would end up going to their starting pitcher, Jake Odorizzi. Jake Odorizzi would end up allowing 4 earned runs in 4.1 innings pitched as he struck out 7 on the day. With this loss, Odorizzi is now 0-2 as a starting pitcher. In the lineup for Houston, no one was able to log more than 1 hit on the day. The only RBI went to Aldemez Diaz. For the Seattle Mariners, the start would end up going to Nick Margevicius, who would allow 1 earned run and 2 runs in 4 innings pitched as he struck out 3. The bullpen would not allow a single run for the rest of the game for Seattle. The first relief pitcher, LJ Newsom, would pick up the win. LJ Newsom would not allow a single run or a single hit in the 2 innings that he pitched as he struck out a batter. With this win, he is 0-1 as a relief pitcher. And in the lineup, their right fielder, Mitch Haniger, would go 2-for-4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs. And their designated hitter, Ty France, would go 2-for-3 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs, as Ty France hit his 3rd home run of the season yesterday. With this win, the Seattle Mariners are now 10-6. They are the first team in the American League West to eclipse 10 wins. They have the best record in the division, as they now sit half a game ahead of the Los Angeles Angels and 3 full games ahead of the Texas Rangers at the moment. And with this loss, the Houston Astros are now 7-8. That is the 4th best record in the AL West, as they now trail the Mariners by 2.5 games. Last but not least, jumping out to Wrigley, the Chicago Cubs hosted the Atlanta Braves, and after the Braves put up 6 runs in the 1st and 6th innings, they were able to beat the Chicago Cubs 13-4 to pick up their 7th win of the season. For the Chicago Cubs, the start and the loss would go to Kyle Hendricks, who allowed 7 earned runs in 4 innings pitched as he struck out 2 on the day. With this loss, Kyle Hendricks is now 0-2 as a starting pitcher, and of course, making a relief appearance would be Craig Kimbrell, the former Atlanta Brave and the Cubs elite closer, who would allow no earned runs in the last inning pitches. He walked 2 batters on the day. In the lineup for Chicago, the first baseman, Anthony Rizzo, would go 2-for-4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he went on to hit 2 home runs on the day. He now has 3 on the season. Their elite third baseman, Chris Bryant, would go 1-for-3 with a walk and a run. Their left fielder, Jock Peterson, would go 2-for-3 with a walk and a run as well. And then their elite shortstop, Javier Baez, would go 2-for-4 with an RBI for himself. For Atlanta, the start and the win would go to Bryce Wilson, who allowed 2 earned runs and 3 runs total in 5 innings pitched as he struck out a batter on the day. With this win, Bryce Wilson is now 1-0 as a starting pitcher for the Atlanta Braves this season. In the lineup for Atlanta, their elite right fielder, Ronald Acuna Jr., will go 0-2 as he walked once. It struck out once and finished with a run on the day. Their elite first baseman, reigning American League MVP, Freddie Freeman, will go 2-for-4 with an RBI and 2 runs, as well as 2 walks. Freddie Freeman would go on to hit his 5th home run of the season last night, as he hit it in the first inning, in the Braves' first inning, where they hit 4 home runs. Their elite left fielder, Marcell Ozuna, would go 2-for-4 with an RBI and 2 runs. Marcell Ozuna hit and had an incredibly great game. Their catcher, Travis d'Arnaud, would go 2-for-3 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs as d'Arnaud hit his 2nd home run of the season last night. Their second baseman, Ehire Adrianza, would end up going 2-for-4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his 2nd home run of the season. Their third baseman, Austin Riley, would go 2-for-3 with 2 runs on the day. And then, of course, their best hitter on the day would be their center fielder, subbing in for Christian Pache, their center fielder Guillermo Heredia, who was the best hitter of the night. He finished 3 for 4 with 6 RBIs and 2 home runs, as he hit his first 2 home runs of the season last night as well. With this win, the Atlanta Braves are now 7-9. That is the 4th best record in the National League East. They currently trail the New York Mets by 2.5 games in the division. With this loss, the Chicago Cubs are now 6-9. That is the worst record in the NL Central, as they now trail the Cincinnati Reds by 3 games in the NL Central. That's everything that's going on with yesterday's MLB games. Looking forward to what's going on today, as of course it's Monday. A lot of teams are they're transitioning into a new series. So just checking out all the games. The only game that's going to be on prime time will be in Seattle, as the Mariners host the reigning MLB champs, the Los Angeles Dodgers, as Justice Sheffield will match up against Dustin May. And then out of the games that aren't on prime time, the Boston Red Sox will host the Chicago White Sox at 11:10 a.m. At 7:05, the Philadelphia Phillies will host the San Francisco Giants. At 7:05, the Washington Nationals will host the St. Louis Cardinals. As for the Cardinals, their elite starting pitcher, Jack Flaherty, is 2-0, looking to get his 3rd win of the season. At 8:10, the Kansas City Royals are going to host the Tampa Bay Rays, the reigning American League champs. At 9:38, the Los Angeles Angels are going to host the the Texas Rangers, And then at 10:10, the San Diego Padres will host the Milwaukee Brewers. Both teams are playing incredibly well right now. So that is currently what the MLB is looking like today. Last but not least, taking a look at how the world of soccer shapes up following yesterday's matchups. Starting, of course, in the English FA Cup, Leicester City was able to beat Southampton 1-0 to advance to the final, where, of course, they will face off against Chelsea. In the Premier League, Manchester United hosted Burnley and were able to pick up a 3-1 win. 2 of their goals coming from their young English forward, Mason Greenwood, and their last one coming from their Uruguayan striker, Edison Cavani, in the 93rd minute. With their 3 goals, they picked up 3 points in the table. They now sit 8 points behind Manchester City in the Premier League, as they currently hold the 2nd place spot. They also sit 10 points ahead of 3rd place Leicester City at the moment, as Leicester City has played 1 less game coming into yesterday. That was everything going on there. Really quickly going on before I go to the rest of the league, I got to point out that MLS played yesterday as well. LA Galaxy was able to beat Inter Miami 3-2, as Javier Hernandez, also known as Chicharito, was able to score 2 goals for LA Galaxy. Columbus Crew and Philadelphia Union drew, and then Vancouver Whitecaps were able to beat Portland Timbers 1-0. But going back out to Europe to see what's going on out there, jumping into Germany, Borussia Dortmund was able to beat Werder Bremen 4-1. Their first goal will come from their American midfielder, Gio Reyna. They would get 2 goals from their elite Norwegian striker, Erling Haaland, one of them being a penalty kick, and then they would score in the 87th minute from their center back, Mats Hummels. With 4 goals and a 3-goal deficit, they were able to pick up 3 points in the table. With this win, they currently sit 5th in the Bundesliga. They sit 4 points below 4th place Eintracht Frankfurt and 2 points above 6th place Bayer Leverkusen, as they are currently situated in a Europa League spot. But they have 5 games left to see if they can crack the Champions League for next season. That's that's what Borussia Dortmund's going through right now. Checking out what's going on in Italian football, AC Milan hosted Genoa and were able to pull off a 2-1 win, a very close win. But with this win, they still sit 2nd in Serie A, as they currently trail Inter by 9 points in the table, and they sit 2 points ahead of 3rd place Atalanta. Atalanta now 3rd place after beating Juventus 1-0 off of an 87th minute goal. With this win, they now sit 2 points below Milan and 2 points ahead of Juventus. With this loss, Juventus barely holds on to that 4th spot, as they are 2 points ahead of Napoli. So that's what's going on in that league. And also Napoli drew with Inter 1-1, as Handanovic and Eriksen would score a goal for their clubs respectively. With this draw, Inter now sits 9 points ahead of 2nd place AC Milan, which is still a very comfortable lead. But of course, this draw gave AC Milan a little bit of an opportunity to jump back into the table. Looking out into La Liga, Atletico Madrid hosted Eibar, and they were able to have two players with braces. They scored all 5 of their goals within a 25-minute stretch in the middle of the game. With their 5th win of the season, Atletico Madrid still holds on to the top record in La Liga. They sit 3 points ahead of second place Real Madrid at the moment and 5 points ahead of Barca. Madrid sitting where they are after they drew with Getafe. They had an opportunity to get back in, but right now with this draw, they now sit 3 points below Atletico Madrid, and now Barcelona may have an opportunity to pass up Real Madrid in the table. Looking out to what's going on in France, PSG hosted Saint-Étienne and were able to pull off a 3-2 win after scoring their last goal in the 95th minute from Mauro Icardi. Their first 2 goals will come from their elite French forward Kylian Mbappe, his second being a penalty kick. Looking out to what's going on into the rest of France out of the top teams, AS Monaco was able to beat Bordeaux 3-0, and Olympique Lyonnais was able to beat Nantes 2-1. Looking at to how the top 4 of the French Ligue 1 stack up, PSG with this win now sits 1 point behind Lille in the table. AS Monaco is now 1 point behind PSG and 2 points behind Lille. And Lyon in 4th place is 1 point behind Monaco, 2 points behind PSG, and now 3 points behind Lille. That is how close the top 4 in France is as they have just gone through their 33rd match of the season as this season is ticking down to the absolute wire. Looking out to what's going on today in the world of soccer, starting off in the Premier League, Leeds United will host Liverpool. Liverpool most definitely need this win, even though being in Super League, they're not gonna have to worry about Champions League. They currently sit 6th in the table. A win here could very possibly see themselves jump back into the top 4 in the Premier League at the moment. But of course, we just got to see how this game how it plays out. But with that said, that's virtually everything that's going on for today. Monday, April 19th. I want to thank everyone once again for listening to all 54 minutes of this piece. And once all of today's exhibitions are finished, I will come back tomorrow on Tuesday, April 20th. For a recap of today's exhibitions and a preview for tomorrow's games. With that said, once again, I want to thank you for listening to all 55 minutes of my piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace out. I'm James Sims, and this is The Elite.